Hey, I'm Markia. Want to hear something scary?
Krampus knocked. "Naughty children, beware," Mirko shouted as he burst through the door in his wooden Stack-Your-Sturge mask. He bore the face of Krampus's spirit helper, for tonight it was Krampus knocked. The night that belonged to the half-goat, half-demon, Krampus. His sister Nika screamed and threw her boots at him. Mirko laughed. He loved scaring his sister. He took off the mask and handed the boots back to her. "Remember to leave them spotless, Nika, and maybe Krampus will only leave a warning to be good." Unlike St. Nicholas, who left gifts for children who were good all year, Krampus was the one to fear, especially if you had been bad. Krampus expected your boots to be spotless for St. Nicholas's gifts as well as what he might leave behind. Bad children would receive the twigs, a bundle of birch sticks, alerting their parents of how bad they had been all year. But the worst children, the ones whose behavior still didn't improve by Christmas, would receive something else altogether. They would be forced into servitude to help deliver Krampus's punishments across the land. No longer human, they would be Stack-Your-Sturge, minions of Krampus. Nika rolled her eyes at her brother and assured him that she wasn't going to be on the naughty list. Mirko took his shoes off and wiped them clean. "Didn't you change your grades to make Fs look like Bs? You almost got expelled." Mirko put their clean shoes on the windowsill for Krampus's inspection. Looking out into the distance, he thought he could see shadows moving from house to house. Was that his imagination, or was that Krampus? Nika must have seen the shadows as well, Mirko thought, as she now looked less sure of herself. Her brother promised they'd be safe. "Krampus will pass over us. Get some sleep." Mirko went to bed and started to drift off when, suddenly, a loud scraping sound woke him. Then there was a crash. Mirko ran into the hallway and nearly crashed into a bewildered Nika. She shakenly said, "I heard him. I heard his hooves and his breathing." Mirko quieted his sister as they snuck into the living room. It sounded like something was moving on the roof. "Perhaps he is leaving," Mirko responded, and then he froze. His and Nika's boots were knocked off the windowsill and on the floor, along with twigs and a mysterious bell. Krampus had indeed visited them, but it was unclear who had received his punishment of the twigs and who the bell. Uncertainty gripped Mirko as he pondered his behavior that year. He did like to tease his sister, but he never thought it was that bad. He wondered if his scaring Nika earlier had caused the punishment. Perhaps it had been one time too many. The whole house shook, and the sound of something huge thudded down next to the house. Nika grabbed the bell and ran, hiding in the kitchen cupboard. Mirko cowered in fear behind the couch. He knew he should have been a good boy and not so prone to mischief. Now, Krampus had come for him. With a chilling creak, the front door opened. The cold invaded as snow began to drift inside. An ominous shadow filled the entire frame of the doorway. A monstrous creature crouched down, entering their home. Coarse, gray-brown fur covered its entire body, save for its demonic face. Long, goat-like horns protruded from the top of its head and scraped against the threshold of the doorway as it entered. It was Krampus, and it was angry.
"I have returned for whoever tried to hide my warning,"
Krampus growled as he grabbed the scattered twigs from the floor. Mirko stood up, and suddenly Krampus was before him. Whimpering, Mirko put his Stack-Your-Sturge mask on and faced the winter entity. Krampus laughed. It sounded like it was crushing coal within its throat and ripped the mask off his face.
"Foolish boy, it's not you that I am after."
The creature held Nika's boots with its long, hairy claws. From its belt hung chains that suddenly rattled. 2 chains unhooked and snaked across the floor and into the kitchen. Nika screamed as she was dragged out by her feet.
Can't you see? She'd hoped you to take the fall, and for that final scheme, her fate is now sealed.
Krampus bellowed. Mirko's sister had betrayed him. When he almost ran into her in the hallway, he now realized she was coming from the living room. She'd found the twigs in her boot, and rather than face their parents about that year's behavior, she had knocked both of their shoes over so their parents would know who had deserved the twigs. Krampus had known what she had tried to do. Mirko fought back tears as he watched his sister try to bargain with Krampus. "You're wrong, demon. The twigs were in his boot, not mine. You left the bell for me. Don't you recognize it?" She lied. Mirko stared into his sister's eyes and began to cry, betrayed but also afraid for her. Nika then realized what she had done and handed her brother the bell, also bursting into tears. Mirko turned to Krampus. Nika looked so alone. Maybe he could... Krampus snarled and bent down low until he was face to face with the terrified boy.
You have no place in my world, young Mirko, for you are not yet a bad child. If that changes, I will be back for you as well,
the demon whispered. And with that, its chains lifted Nika up into the air. Krampus snapped Mirko's wooden stack-your-sturge mask onto the girl's face. She screamed, trying to pry it off, but slowly her struggling stopped as she was transformed into one of Krampus's spirit helpers. Mirko no longer recognized his sister as she followed Krampus out of the house. As she crossed the doorway, she paused for a moment and looked back at Mirko. She no longer recognized him either. And with that, she bounded into the night after her master, leaving the boy with nothing but a bell and some twigs.